one who cares about people need to do. They need to really study what is the result of a government program. And don't just read it in the Atlantic or the Boston Globe. Read all the literature out there and go on the Internet and search it, because this is when you find out that government makes things worse 95% of the time.
Agreed.
Spending that it does.
You're
it
listening.
Makes things worse.
You're listening to the Coalition on Talk Radio on AM 790, coalitionradio.us. Carla, we've only got about 15 minutes left. This is one of those shows where I wish we had about 3 hours. You're part of, by the way, if you're listening, just tuning in, a libertarian intervention that's taking place on hostile grounds here at AM 790 with Carla Howell, who is the National Policy Director of the Libertarian Party of the United States of America. Carla, I'm going to briefly run through a couple of issues where, let's just say, libertarians got it before it was cool. First of all, marriage equality.
Absolutely. I was running for U.S. Senate, walking in the Gay Pride Parade in Boston in 2002. When I ran for governor, I did the same thing. That year, I was in debates with a Green Party candidate, Jill Stein, who later was a Green presidential candidate, and all the Democratic candidates. Romney wouldn't show up for him at that point. It was pre-primary. And I was the only one out swinging for marriage equality. I was walking through the streets of Boston saying, I support your right to marry. And the crowd there all through the South End was cheering. These are nice family people who just wanted to have a legal family. You know, they were normal people. And they were just being slighted, and the Democrats wouldn't step up to the plate. That afternoon in 2002, my lieutenant governor running mate, Rich Aucoin, great man, he at the end of the parade, they section off each group into the Boston Common, and we got put next to Robert Reich's group. He was running for governor that year, and he was saying civil unions like all the other Democrats were. They wouldn't come out and say marriage. And he talked to those volunteers of his for about an hour, saying, you know, Carla Howell's right on this issue, and Robert Reich is wrong. And they said, we know. And he said, well, what are you doing? What are you supporting a candidate who won't get off the fence on this issue? That afternoon, Robert Reich announced, first Democrat in the history of the state, that he supported gay marriage. And this is an example of libertarians sort of clearing the minefields, if you will. The Globe subsequently reported that he was the first governor candidate, ignoring my candidacy when I had clearly come out in favor of gay marriage.
The media.
Yeah.
All right, here's another issue. This one could take hours. Give us a couple of quick thoughts on the Middle East.
We need to get out. In 2014, several dozen Libertarian federal candidates took a pledge to cut military spending by 60%, which would leave us with a military larger than the combined militaries of China and Russia, by the way, and get us completely out of the Middle East, bring our troops home. We just keep making things worse. ISIS is a result of our intervention. You know, we went into Iraq, tore the place apart, and now what do we have? We have ISIS. And there's no evidence that our continued bombing and intervention won't just make things worse and help them recruit even more bloody terrorists into their movement.
Well, I would say the evidence is to the contrary of that, that us being there and doing what we're doing is actually exacerbating. Yeah, absolutely. It's a recruitment tool.
A couple weeks ago, the CPAC conference in Washington, D.C., Conservative Political, whatever it stands for, Gary Johnson was there, former governor of New Mexico, our libertarian candidate in 2012. He was on a panel with three hawks and a moderator who was hawkish as well. And one of the hawks was saying, watch this video of this, everyone should watch this 11-minute video of a man being beheaded. And I'm thinking, what, is he being paid by ISIS to say this, to advertise for them?
Right.
You know, but Gary Johnson said, it's just not working. Our policies aren't working. We need to get out, Governor Gary Johnson. And it was interesting. The room was very polarized. It was about 60% on the Hawk side, 40% on Governor Johnson's side amongst that group, because that attracts a more libertarian wing of the Republican Party than, for instance, the Republican National Convention will.
Right. I love the kind of the armchair knee-jerk reaction of like, oh, what, like, nobody puts two and two together. They say, "Oh, we got all these Muslims coming into our country." Well, how many of those are actually driven here by our horrendous foreign policy in the Middle East, in their home countries? You know, people don't seem to be able to draw that comparison. But
yeah, no, I'm not sure how many come for that reason, but certainly we know there's been, millions, hundreds of thousands, if not millions, fleeing to Syria and other locations.
Sure.
And it's just a horrific situation that it's a blight on our country that we have caused such destruction. And I think there are people who have been sold on the idea that it's necessary. They mean well. They think we have to do this, but it's just not true. You just got to open your eyes and look at. When I was a kid, many years ago, in the 60s and 70s, they were talking about a peace accord in the Middle East. Peace is just around the corner in the Middle East, and we have continued to do nothing but fund and train and bomb and intervene and impose sanctions to these countries for decades, and it's getting us nowhere, much like this Cuban embargo. It doesn't work. We got to give it up.
What was the saying? Peace in our time. Oh, that was the wrong. Sorry, that was the wrong theater of war. I would be remiss in our remaining few minutes if I didn't. You mentioned CPAC. There is a constituency here in Rhode Island, as you know, across the nation that worships all things Paul. And to my friends at Paul Bots and making friends through Rand Paul and going Galt in 2016. This touches a little bit on the notion of the Liberty Republicans. What are your thoughts about Rand Paul?
Well, Rand Paul, to his credit, has proposed some good bills, gotten behind some good bills. He was the only Republican who proposed actual spending cuts. He had proposed a $500 billion cut in spending when he ran for Senate, and that wasn't enough to balance the budget. Gary Johnson, our candidate for the Libertarian Party, called for balancing the budget. Many of our candidates have called for balancing the budget, plus ending the federal income tax, drawing back spending to the year 1998 that would allow us to have absolutely no personal income tax, nor any deficit. Just getting rid of a bunch of unnecessary, wasteful, and damaging programs. Rand didn't go that far, but he's done some good things, but he's committed some serious sins, and the biggest one is not just his waffling on issues like in military intervention being one that stands out, but the biggest problem that I see with Rand Paul is his willingness to endorse Mitch McConnell, Mitt Romney, and other egregious Republican politicians. And the problem with that is it, first of all, it reinforces this left-right, we must have a two-party system myth that is keeping us stuck with more big government. And it, of course, directly helps the political fortunes of these very, very bad big government politicians. And his challenge, and the challenge I would put to him, is how will you ever in your lifetime do enough good as a fairly singular force in the Senate for the good things you do that can outweigh the bad things you do when you endorse big government Republicans. That's a problem. He said he had to make that deal to get elected. Well, then maybe that's why you say getting elected isn't the real top priority here, because you're not able to overcome the damage you do when you endorse a big government politician like that.
Close this out. We've only got about a minute or so left. The wasted vote syndrome. Can you put that to death for us?
You are giving permission for more big government when you vote for a big government Democrat or a big government Republican. And that is what you will get. You will get no change whatsoever. The only way we're going to change politics in America is not falling for that fraud and that manipulation, saying, no, I'm going to vote for the people who make government smaller and only the people that make government smaller. Go to the polls, write in a candidate if there's no one for a particular office who is small government, but make it clear that you're there, ready to vote. And when they start seeing that voter bloc grow and grow and grow of people unwilling to vote for big government, ready to pounce on the next small government that's that's nominated for that office and on the ballot, they know that things have to change. That is when we will change. We'll probably see change before we even elect anyone, because your vote does matter.
You've been listening to the Coalition on Talk Radio, AM 790. coalitionradio.us, facebook.com/coalition radio. One of my political heroes, Carla Howe. Carla, thank you so much for coming in. We hope to have you back again in the very near future.
My pleasure. Have a wonderful day.
Take care.
Take care.
And we'll see you folks next week. coalitionradio.us, facebook.com/coalition radio, and of course the mighty Twitter at @coalition_radio. Have a great week. Give them hell.
AM 790 Talkin' Business.